What's going on, man? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Ron, and today I'm going to go over my start sits for week 2. We're going to go into some running backs, some wide receivers, and we're going to sprinkle in a little bit of tight ends and quarterbacks that I'm streaming this week. Those guys are owned in under 50% of ESPN leagues. Now, before I get into that, make sure you go down below and subscribe. And while you're down there, if I don't cover a player on your team that you not sure if you should start him or sit him, just go down below and comment and ask, and I'll respond pretty quickly, man. And before I waste any more of your time or any more of my time, let's go.
I know I'm critical. My nitty bag, my kitty boots. I got the juice, I got the juice.
First up, we're going to go into some juicy running back matchups that I like. And this one, it fucking hurts inside, man. Ronald Jones. I've been gassing up Fat Leo, Leonardo the Greats, if you will. And he got, I think, maybe 5 yards in week 1. Right now, it seems like Bruce Arians is rolling with Ronald Jones. He had 19 touches in a game where the Bucs lost by 2 possessions to the Saints. And Ronald Jones had a 74.1% opportunity share, which was number 8. And it seems like Bruce Arians is going to be rolling with Ronald Jones until future notice. I'd love to see Leonard Fournette get some touches in there, but for week 2, in terms of who am I starting, Ronald Jones is a locked-in fringe RB1, RB2. I think he's going to get a lot of touches this week. They're minus 8.5 point favorites, and their implied total in Vegas is 28 points. Now, Jones should have 15 to 20 touches this game against a soft defense in Carolina, and I think that there's going to be plenty of scoring opportunities. He's going to get plenty of touches, and Ronald Jones is a really good start this week, man. Speaking of an absolute workhorse in his offense, we got Jonathon Taylor, and this guy's a stud. We've been known that he's a stud. He was balling the fuck out at Wisconsin. Probably one of the best running back prospects I've ever seen. Probably a small tier below Saquon when you factor in his speed score, his 4.39 40, I believe it was, and the production that he had at Wisconsin. Now, if you have Jonathon Taylor, you're probably starting him, but I just want to talk about him because I know that there's Taylor owners out there that don't feel good about last week. He only had 11.9 points in 0.5 PPR leagues and finished as the RB23, but I'm telling you, just be confident in Taylor going forward. Taylor's a locked-in RB1 for me going forward, regardless of matchup. Now, this week, he has a fine matchup against the Vikings. There's going to be positive game script. They're favored by 3 points to win. And what makes Taylor super special is when coming out, he had his biggest downside coming out was that he wasn't a great receiving back. He didn't catch a lot of passes in Wisconsin, but Phillip Rivers is going to feed him the ball no matter what. Phillip Rivers, he passed to the running backs on 38% of passes, and I expect Rivers to keep on feeding his running backs in that range of 30% when it comes to target share. Now, somebody that's kind of seeing the downside effects of Phillip Rivers is Austin Ekeler right now. He's going up against Kansas City, and it kind of was tough to watch because Tyrod Taylor last week when they played the Bengals, Tyrod Taylor wasn't feeding the running backs like Phillip Rivers was, but I think that this is a get-right game for Austin Ekeler. I know he only had 1 target in week 1. Everybody's very scared about Austin Ekeler. It's very similar to Jonathon Taylor. Austin Ekeler, if you have him, you're probably starting him, but I just want to tell you guys, be confident in Austin Ekeler this week. I don't love the Chargers, and I don't love his season-long outlook, but he just got 19 touches. He had only 1 target last week, but in the 2 matchups against the Chiefs last year, he had double-digit targets. Now, obviously, Tyrod Taylor is not throwing to the running back as much as Phillip Rivers was, but I think that we'll see Austin Ekeler get in that range of 5 to 7 targets and probably somewhere around 15 carries. I think he's a stud RB1 in week 2. Now, when you go a little bit deeper, you look a little bit farther down your bench. If you're in a squeeze, you got to get that flex spot. If you have 2 or 3 flex spots, I like J.K. Dobbins this week. I think against Houston, in Houston, he's a fringe RB2 this week. And we just saw the Chiefs absolutely run the fucking rock on the Houston Texans last week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy who was supposed to be a satellite back coming out of school, was just breaking people's ankles out of the backfield, looks great. And I think J.K. Dobbins is going to do something similar to that. I would say personally J.K. Dobbins is better between the tackles than CEH is. So with that in mind, I think Dobbins is a great boomer bust flex play. And in this matchup, I think we're going to see one of Dobbins or Ingram have a really nice game. And my bet's on Dobbins as a big boom or bust type guy. Moving on from Dobbins, we got our sit/bust this week. Now, the first one is one that's pretty obvious. It's James Conner against Denver. Even though you drafted him as an RB1, RB2 kind of guy, I'm not starting him under any circumstances. I don't care if he's healthy. At this point, the guy is made out of glass. No matter what game he suits up for, he has a good chance of re-injuring or sitting out good time. And I think now after last week, Benny Snell blew up for 100 yards. The guy looks like a fucking stud. And I think that he's going to eat into James Conner's workload. I just don't feel good about it. They're playing against Denver, a really low scoring total. I think it's 40.5 right now. There's going to be a lot of points scored. And that's why I'm also sitting another guy who's Melvin Gordon in the same matchup. And I know that Phillip Lindsay's hurt, and he's going to get a lot of work, a lot of volume, but they're 7.5 point underdogs in the lowest over-under game of the week at 40.5. And to me, Gordon's like a borderline top 24 RB. If you can get somebody else in that lineup instead of him, I would try and do it. I know a lot of you guys drafted Melvin Gordon in a spot where you have to start him, but if you can, I would be shying away. Now, I know a lot of you guys blew a fat load of fab on the boy Malcolm Brown, but for me personally, I'm not ready to start him yet. At least I wouldn't be comfortable starting him in a flex spot. If you have 2 or 3 flex spots, then fine, but this is a game where the Rams are going to rely on the passing game. The Eagles are top 5 in rushing defense efficiency according to Football Outsiders, and the Rams O-line is awful. It's just complete shit, so I think it's going to really funnel the looks in that offense to the passing game this week. I think it's going to be a good week for Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Jared Goff, all those guys, but I'm not convinced on Malcolm Brown this week. I don't think he's going to get as much volume, as many carries, as many touchdowns, and I'm also just not convinced that Cam Akers is now all of a sudden just going to be pushed to the side after one game. They drafted him in the second round. I just don't see him going away. I think he's going to keep on eating into that workload, and eventually I see it becoming Cam Akers' backfield, but that's for a whole other video. Next up, we got my wide receiver starts this week, and first up, I want to talk about DJ Moore. He's going into Tampa Bay, and I know a lot of you guys drafted him as your wide receiver 1, but I've been hearing a lot of schmooky talk on this boy's name. A lot of people are saying DJ Moore ain't this, ain't that. People are kind of saying, oh, Robbie Anderson's getting some more targets in the intermediate routes. Look, DJ Moore, he's the sweetheart of the fantasy community, and I'm not going to shy away from him after one game. Carolina is going to be down in this game against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has an elite run defense, so it's going to funnel the targets and the looks and the offense snaps to the passing game. That's going to create a lot of opportunity for DJ Moore. I think he's going to get a ton of targets, and look for DJ Moore to bounce back this week. I like him as a top 5 option. I think he's going to smash this week. And another guy who had a quiet week 1 that I really want to quell all the concerns. No need to freak out, especially with Allen Robinson. I know he was the trade rumors came out. He was saying, fuck Chicago Bears. I love that clip when he got thrown to from Blake Bortles. He's like, keep that shit in balance, bro. He's probably having the same problem with Mitch Trubisky, but look, he came out and said, I'm not trying to get traded. And as long as Allen Robinson is on the Bears, he's going to ball out. And the New York Giants have such a shitty pass defense. Their best corner, DeAndre Baker, he got yossed off the team because of like robbery charges. That secondary is dust at this point. Now, if you're not as fortunate to be able to start one of those guys, and you got a flex or maybe 2 flexes, and it's looking desperate, I like Parris Campbell this week against Minnesota. They just got absolutely torched by Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers just hung his nuts on that team. I think he threw for 360 yards and 4 touchdowns. He scored about 43 points. And Campbell led his team in snaps, catches, and yards last week, and he tied for the team high in targets. Parris Campbell, I like him this week, and if he performs again in this week, then I think that he could be a firm wide receiver 3, fringe wide receiver 2 going forward. Now, wide receiver I wouldn't play under any circumstances this week is Courtland Sutton. I don't like to play wide receivers with lingering injuries. Lingering injuries, that first game back for wide receivers, either a decoy or they re-injure themselves. That AC joint sprain, I've seen it before, and I really don't think it's just a 1-week injury where he's going to come back at 100%. And as I said before, he's playing against Pittsburgh. He's playing in Pittsburgh. Extremely tough matchup. That's a top 5 defense, the lowest over-under of the week. Not a lot of points are going to be scored, so I just don't love Sutton anywhere. I'd rather play anybody over Courtland Sutton. I think that's a bad gamble to take on your team. And another guy I don't like this week is Sterling Shepard. He's going to be in Chicago, another tough defense, another away game. And I'm not so sure what's good with Sterling Shepard for the rest of the year because he just got out-targeted 9-6 by Darius Slayton. And it's looking like Darius Slayton, he might be the one in that offense. I thought it would be Sterling Shepard. I thought maybe it was Golden Tate. I like Darius Slayton as like a long shot type of guy. But he balled out last week. And this is a tough matchup. I think that the Giants are going to run the ball a little more than people think. And I'm not trying to start Sterling Shepard by any means this week. Now it's time to ride the waves with me, boy. We're going to be living the stream this week. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like me. We go late QB. We go late tight end around here. And what that ends up meaning is we're going to have to stream some QBs and stream some tight ends. So these are 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends that I'm streaming that are under 50% owned in ESPN leagues. I think that's a good enough number barrier for everybody, for at least one of them to be available in your league. So first up, we have Jared Goff in Philadelphia, and he threw for 275 yards last week on 31 attempts. And I think he just got unlucky with those 0 touchdowns. I think he only scored about 10 points in fantasy leagues. And this week, the Eagles are not a sexy matchup. You know, you're not drooling over this matchup. But the Eagles, as I said, they're going to force the Rams to throw the ball. I think this is a game where Jared Goff's going to have 250 yards with 2+ touchdowns. I love him as a streamer this week. Now, last up, we got the tight end streams. And I've been talking about these guys all offseason. First up, we got Jonnu Smith. He's going against the Jaguars. And A.J. Brown, right now, he's looking iffy for week 2. And that could give Smith more targets. But even in the event that A.J. Brown's healthy and he's in the game, I still like Jonnu Smith, man. They're playing against the Jaguars. They're going to win that game. And I think it's sort of a sneaky thing that they're having kicker problems. Gostkowski, I don't know how many fucking kicks he missed last week, but they could not kick a field goal past like 25 yards. So I think that gives Jonnu Smith and the receivers as well more red zone opportunities, but that's why I like Jonnu Smith. I think that he could score another touchdown this week. I like him as a streaming option. And another guy that's just a little bit deeper is Chris Herndon. He had an underwhelming week in week 1, but I think it was a really low-key positive week going forward. He only had 37 yards and no touchdowns. I think he bounces back this week after finishing with 7 targets, which was number 5 among tight ends, and then 6 receptions, which was number 2 among tight ends. So look for him to bounce back and really regress in the yards and touchdown categories. If you made it this far, man, I appreciate it. And if you stayed this far and you're not subscribed, if you just watched 15 plus minutes of me and you're not subscribed, man, just go down below, subscribe. We're at 120 something right now. I'm really trying to grow this community. And as I said before, if you have any questions about your team, trade, waivers, anything like that, just go down below, comment, and I'll respond to you within the hour, man. I really care about your guys' teams. I'm really trying to help all you guys out.